ISAs give huge tax advantages, but not all ISAs are the same, and choosing the right one for your situation is crucial. There are 4 ISA types, but the 2 most common are a cash ISA and a stocks and shares ISA. Most people tend to opt for a cash ISA, as according to HMRC, in the 2022-2023 tax year, 63% of ISA subscriptions were for cash ISAs, compared to 31% for stocks and shares ISAs. However, if you've recently seen the news, you'll know that the government clearly wants us to put more money into stocks and shares ISAs. They caused a big hoo-ha by floating the idea of reducing the cash ISA allowance, and now it seems they're looking at softer ways to nudge people towards investing. The reason they're pushing this agenda is to help people get the best returns possible, as investing has historically given higher returns over the long term. The average return for stocks and shares ISA over the past 10 years is 9.64%, compared to just 1.2% for a cash ISA. Plus, Rachel Reeves is probably thinking that more money in stocks and shares ISAs will lead to greater investment into UK businesses. Although, I'm not too sure on the extent this would actually happen, as most stocks and shares ISA investors likely invest in global funds rather than just UK-focused companies. Nonetheless, whatever the reasons the government have, their agenda has raised the question of whether you should be putting more of your ISA savings into stocks, and which ISA type best suits you. Ultimately, the best ISA for you depends on your goals, your risk appetite, and when you need the money. It's not a zero-sum game either, as many people will fall into the bucket of suiting both for different uses. So in this video, we'll be covering all of this, and we're going to split the video into 4 parts. We're firstly going to provide an overview of a cash ISA and stocks and shares ISA, then we'll go through who best suits a stocks and shares ISA, followed by who best suits a cash ISA, and we'll finish the video by going through when to use both. It's worth saying that I'm not a financial advisor, so please take this video with a pinch of salt and do your own research. If you're new here, I'm Finch, a management consultant by day, and on this channel we like to discuss all things personal finance with a particular focus on how to grow your money through investing. If this sounds good to you, then I'd greatly appreciate a subscribe. But for this video, let's get into it, and let's kick off by going through the ISA types, and let's start with the cash ISA. A cash ISA is a savings account where all the interest you earn is tax-free. This is what makes it different from a normal savings account, as if you don't use an ISA and just use a normal savings account, you'll need to pay tax on any interest earned above your personal savings allowance. This is £1,000 if you're a basic rate taxpayer. For higher rate, it's £500, and for additional rate taxpayers, the allowance is £0. So cash ISAs are particularly useful for higher earners trying to protect their interest from tax. Most cash ISAs are easy access, meaning you can take money out at any time, and they're currently offering some pretty good rates too. At the time of recording, the best easy access rate is 4.98% from Trading 212, according to the Money Saving Expert tables at the time of recording. Now we know all about cash ISAs, the next question is, what is a stocks and shares ISA? This works in the same way as the cash variant in terms of the tax-free benefits, but instead of saving, you're investing, meaning your money goes into things like funds and individual stocks. The big benefit here is that all capital gains and dividends inside the ISA are tax-free, which is not the case with a general investment account. If you go over your capital gains and dividend allowances in a single tax year with a general investment account, you'll need to pay tax. Currently, the capital gains allowance is £3,000 and dividend allowance is £500. So a stock and shares ISA lets you invest without needing to worry about hitting the capital gains tax or dividend allowance limits. Before we move on to deciding between the variants, I want to mention another ISA type in a lifetime ISA. You can get a cash lifetime ISA or a stocks and shares lifetime ISA, and these have the same tax benefits as the standard cash and stocks and shares ISAs we just went through. However, lifetime ISAs have 3 big differences. Firstly, an annual contribution limit of £4,000. This is part of your £20,000 annual ISA allowance. So for example, you could put in £4,000 in a cash lifetime ISA and £16,000 in a cash ISA in the same tax year. The second difference is the fact that you can get a bonus of 25% on top of what you put in from the government. So if you put in the full £4,000 into a lifetime ISA, you'll get a bonus of £1,000 on top of any interest or gains you make. The third big difference is the withdrawal conditions. You can only withdraw money from this account for two specific uses, either to help pay towards the deposit or the total cost of a first-time property purchase, or for retirement, as you can take money out from the age of 60. If you want to withdraw money for any other reason, then you'll face a 25% penalty. So because of these withdrawal restrictions, lifetime ISAs tend to suit very specific people. There is a big advantage with this account in the 25% bonus, and this means that lifetime ISAs are usually the first point of call for anyone looking to save up for their first property. However, for most people watching this, a standard cash ISA or stocks and shares ISA will likely suit. So let's move on to the considerations of who best suits each of these. And let's start with who best suits a stocks and shares ISA. When using a stocks and shares ISA, you'll be investing and putting your money into something you believe will go up in value over time above and beyond inflation and savings rates. But with the chance of a higher return, you also take the risk that your investments can go down as well as up in value. With that risk, investments are often volatile in the short term and going up and down a lot. But in the long run, after 5 years, most funds tracking world indexes generally outperform saving and inflation rates. A time frame above 5 years typically gives most global funds enough time to ride out any bumps in the market. For example, if we take a look at the returns of 500 large American companies measured by the S&P 500 index over the past 20 or so years, you'll notice that some years the S&P 500 went down significantly, such as in 2008, 2001 or 2021. However, the long-term trend is definitely upwards. Over most 5-year periods, the overall net growth tends to be positive. This isn't just the S&P 500 trend either. There is a clear historical trend that the longer the time frame you give your investments, the better chance they'll make a good return and ultimately beat saving rates. For example, a 2024 Barclays study found that over the past 130 years, the probability that the UK stock market outperformed cash savings over any 2-year period was 70%, but over a 10-year period, it was a whopping 91%. It's worth saying that this is never guaranteed, as past performance doesn't guarantee future performance. But the historical trend is still reassuring, at least to me. For this reason, investing using a stocks and shares ISA tends to suit those who are saving for a goal where they don't need the money for at least 5 years and are willing to take risk. Investing over the long term tends to offer a better return than savings, and therefore a means to grow your money quicker than through a cash ISA. Of course, the decision of which account to focus on still depends on your risk appetite. If you absolutely can't afford for your money to drop in value, then a stock and shares ISA might not be suitable, and this is where a cash ISA comes in. Cash ISAs are best suited to people who want a low-risk guaranteed return and have goals where they'll need the money in the short term, which typically means under 5 years. For example, if you're saving up for a car, home improvements, a wedding within the next 5 years, or just want quick access to an emergency fund, then a cash ISA makes sense. You'll earn interest tax-free, your money won't go down in value, you'll have quick access to the money if you use a easy access account, and eligible funds are FSCS protected up to £85,000. This is very different to investing, as with investing, nothing is guaranteed. If you invested money with a stock and shares ISA in the examples we just mentioned, and needed to withdraw within, let's say, 3 years, then you run the risk that in the short term the market has a bad few years and you end up losing money when you withdraw. For example, if we bring back up the S&P 500, we can see that if you invested in 1999 and needed the money 3 years later, you likely would have lost money when you sold. So a cash ISA tends to suit those who are looking to save for a short-term goal and those with lower risk appetite. Of course, this doesn't need to be an either or too. You can use a cash ISA and stocks and shares ISA together if this best suits your goals. Most people tend to have multiple goals, and different ISA types tend to suit different goals. For example, you could use a cash ISA to save up for a wedding which is within 5 years, and then use a stocks and shares ISA to invest in your future beyond that. Think of your ISA allowance like a toolkit. You've got £20,000 per year, and how you divide it should match your goals, your time frame, and your comfort with risk. And if you're a first-time buyer or thinking about retirement, don't forget about the lifetime ISA too, because of that 25% bonus. Ultimately, the best ISA for you or best combination of ISAs should be based on your own circumstances. So please do your own research. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you want some help deciding what to invest inside a stocks and shares ISA, then I have a video around here. Thanks for watching.